Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. They want to make a deal so badly. U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters about Iran at the White House Tuesday. Now, this has seen oil prices slide in Asia, but the uncertainty remains for Europeans filling up at the pump. Diesel and petrol prices have fluctuated sharply in recent days as Middle East tensions keep markets on edge. Now, what it all means and how Europe is impacted, we're now joined by Czyżewski, energy analyst at the Polska Natury Foundation. Good to have you back on TVP World. Welcome.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me.
So a lot of, let's maybe not surprising, but a lot of positive words from President Trump yesterday saying this war has been won. They want to make a deal. Everything is just going so well. Looking at the oil price, I mean, do you see this now, even if this crisis ends tomorrow, price, impact, supply? What do you make of his recent comments?
Well, of course, President Trump is known from his optimism. We see the market relief. The oil prices has dropped significantly, but they are very volatile lately. So we can count this factor in that many market players are making money and speculating on markets. It's quite clear. Strait of Hormuz is still blocked. There are very few ships that cross this strait. The supply chain disruption is still on. The conflict is not ended yet, and even if it will end tomorrow, we'll still have couple of months of economic turbulences. We have damaged or destroyed energy infrastructure in the Middle East, almost in every country. The most significant destruction is in Ras Laffan in Qatar, a plant that produces gas, and this particular plant is responsible for 20% of global LNG supply. It will be offline for months, and 17% of its capacity will be offline for 3 to 5 years, as Qatar officials are saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so many threads. I'm just curious also, apparently the Iranians, the mission to the UN, have said that, this was yesterday, non-hostile vessels can now pass through the Strait of Hormuz, provided they coordinate with Iranian authorities. Again, a soundbite, but will it bring down prices more? How stable do you think that will be?
Well, I won't predict anything, but if we would look at the trackers of ships that go through Hormuz Strait, there are very few. There are just the small percentage, around 5% of the ships that went through this strait before the conflict. So, you know, this is the headline. It feels like a major breakthrough, but the Strait of Hormuz is still blocked.
Mm-hmm. Let's zoom in on our region into Poland as well. Orlen, one of the largest oil and gas companies here in the region, has said that it's lowered wholesale fuel prices. How long does that take for it to impact consumers here in Poland? And also the government has said here, Prime Minister Donald Tusk, that they will do something to help. Again, question, what can they do to help, and how fast will consumers feel that?
Well, of course, the Orlen, the companies that sell fuel in Poland are companies. They are binded by the law to not to harm its profits, its operations. So Orlen has some space to lower the prices, but it can't do anything. It's in a it has its shareholders, it has its operations, and it can make some move, but cannot lower the prices too much. The government, of course, can lower the taxes on gas, at least temporarily, to relieve millions of Polish people that are using cars in everyday life. They don't need it out of whim, luxury. They needed to go to work to take care of children, of elders. We in big city can switch to public transportation or bike. It's getting warmer. It's that time of the year. But millions of Polish people cannot do that. The cut of VAT tax or other taxes is something that government can do, and frankly, at this point, should do, because the price of gas is a big part of spendings by Polish families.
Yeah, so I mean, that's that moment, as you said, to do this. Speaking of LNG as well, I mean, Europe is heavily dependent on LNG very much from the United States. If we're looking at, I think, my figures here, that half of LNG comes from the United States. I mean, some of it still comes from the Middle East, but what does that do in terms of pricing? I mean, there's that's also impacted. You mentioned earlier the refineries struck in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf. Where does this leave Europe in terms of also dependency and price?
Well, 50%, as you said, of LNG comes from US, but only 20% of gas. We have also gas from Norway, some 30-35% of gas that goes through pipelines, the very dense web of pipelines in Northern Sea. Actually, one of the pipeline is Baltic Pipe, which goes to Poland and delivers gas to our country. So this dependency is not that big when you look at the whole gas imports to Europe, but of course you cannot replace even 20% of gas supply immediately. So US is a major exporter to Europe. We switched from dependency on Russia to dependency on Norway, on United States in terms of gas in 2022, 2023 and on. Of course, it's much better dependency because it's dependency on allies, but it's still dependency. Europe has diversified also those imports, so we are safer than before 2022, but we still should look for other energy sources, not to be basically energy independent as much as possible.
Speaking of Europe as well, I want to ask you two more questions, so bear with me. So the European Commission has now delayed an announcement that its proposed ban for Russian oil, that might be delayed beyond April 15th. I mean, this is very much part of European policy. How do you think that impacts the market? How will this affect energy pricing? I mean, that's quite significant, and why is that?
Well, it will be a relief to the markets, speaking frankly. We have supply disruption. Of course, EU imports some 6% of its gas from Qatar, but it's still a noticeable amount. And some analysts predicted that the sanctions on Russia will be at least delayed because, well, we have supply disruption and Russia is ready to sell us gas. Of course, there are geopolitical and political or even moral issues here, but it's kind of emergency. We cannot, of course, delay that further. We cannot abandon those sanctions because we'll be giving Russia more money to fund its war in Ukraine.
Yeah, and with the waiver was, I think even today, India just snagged up, I think, 60 million barrels of oil from Russia as well.
Russia is already won on this Middle Eastern conflict. It's selling its oil twice as high as before the war. So Russia already won in this.
I wanted to ask you another question, which came up as well. We look very much at the Persian Gulf, the oil, everything that's critical for so many parts of our economy. With helium, tell me quickly about what that kind of impact will have, because this is also, I think, significant. You told us earlier.
Yeah, the United States, Canada and Qatar are responsible for 80% of world's helium supply. Qatar is around 30%. And helium is significant to the production of silicon slices, which...
So chips, semiconductors.
Chips, yeah. Yeah. The silicon slices are essential to production of chips, semiconductors, to integrated circuits in photovoltaics, for example. Basically, without helium, you don't have smartphones, tablets, laptops, data centers. You don't have artificial intelligence and MRI from medical point of view. So this is very important because this Ras Laffan plant was bombed. It's part of it's offline, and that can bring a disruption of also to advanced technology around the world.
All right, so not just fuel and gas prices, but it does seem even our smartphones may be impacted by all this if this goes on, right?
We may be looking into a multi-crisis, a global multi-crisis.
Dan Czyżewski, always a pleasure having you here from Polska's Natury Foundation. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary.